Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all good. So today we have got 12 house renovation tips for you guys. So we've done one project before and now we're currently doing another one. So we thought we'd share our tips with you guys. So they are kind of general house renovation tips. Some are more tips for like HMOs and if you're going to have tenants and things like that. But I feel like it's something that everyone can watch. So first tip.
The first tip is to think about whether it's a HMO or whether it's something else. So our first major renovation was a HMO, but before that we were refurbing an SA. That went horribly wrong. We should probably do a video just about that. But yeah, that renovation didn't go well. But yeah, thinking about, is it a HMO? Because obviously there are things that you need to consider. So thinking about the layout, which is something I'm always like really kind of keen to get my head around. But also the one tip that I took from a book, and the book was, I think it was HMO Refurbishments by Nick Fox, I think. And it was about keeping the level of work and the cost down in a HMO by seeing whether you can co-locate the bathroom. So what I mean by that is, even if you're providing a bathroom for each room, you don't have to have it as en suites. You can have almost like a sort of bathroom block. And that's something that we did in the first renovation that I think it definitely kept the work down and the cost down as well. So, you know, co-locating the bathroom so that you don't need to be putting plumbing and drainage all through the different rooms is a really good tip if you can do it. And it's something that we're doing on our second renovation as well.
Yeah.
And I was going to say also as well, just also thinking about the functionality depending on what it is that you're doing. So if it's a HMO, you know, thinking about things like how many bathrooms you can get away with. Obviously, the other thing that you need to consider with a HMO is in the kitchen, you know, how much cooking space you need, how many appliances, all of that sort of thing. So I think in terms of, you know, thinking about your cost and just overall what you're trying to achieve is really dependent on what it is that you're trying to do with the property, what the market is, you know, so is it for an older market? Is it for first-time buyers? Is it a HMO? And then kind of almost like shaping the renovation around that. So just making some of those big key decisions and key assumptions up front.
Yeah, cool. So the second tip we have when renovating a house is really hiring people you trust. So we definitely really rely on our builder and we just really trust him to just do everything properly. And he can definitely see things that we can't see because he's a builder, so I just guess his mind works differently. So I mentioned in one of my house renovation videos before about how he saw that we could get en suites in the rooms and still have the bathrooms all together. So the original plan was to split this into 3 wet rooms so that each person would have their own individual bathroom like in our other place. But once the wall was taken down and Mom and the builder sort of took a step back, our builder managed to improve on the layout and said, why don't we turn this side into an ensuite and have a door come in from this bedroom here. So then this bedroom is going to have an ensuite now, and then it's going to be 2 bathrooms over here. So 2 of them will still have their own bathroom, but then this one does get an ensuite. So because of this improvement on the layout, we now have 4 ensuites and 4 private bathrooms. So it just makes it better for the tenant. And it was kind of him that noticed that, where it was something that we didn't pick up before. So definitely having a builder who can like improve your plans and yeah, just make things better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know whether it's because he is a carpenter, maybe is his main trade. I think that makes a big difference, but I would say someone that you trust, but also somebody that has a main builder that has quite a good eye, like a good eye for sort of design and spacing, because often they have to make decisions, especially like when you're not around. You just can't anticipate every decision. And some builders I know, because when I think about the first renovation that went horribly wrong, the SA, some builders will just do literally whatever the easiest thing is to do. But you know, when you find somebody that's really conscientious about their work and also they've got a good eye for design and they kind of get what you're trying to achieve, that is just like priceless.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, hire people you trust.
Definitely, definitely. Now this next tip might be, I'm not going to say it's controversial, but I know that some people, as their property strategy, they will travel, you know, so they'll probably, you know, they'll live down south and they'll have properties in the north. And so maybe then when you're doing your renovation, you've maybe got somebody else looking after the site. For me, and the one of the biggest learns, and I'm so glad that in terms of our strategy that for our refurbishments we've gone close to home, because for me regular site visits is an absolute must. I think unless you've hired a project manager to kind of do it for you, and even then I think you have to visit site fairly regularly, but if you are the project manager, and we've always acted as our own project manager, you have to be there minimum once a week, because I was saying about decisions before, there are so many decisions that come up you can't even imagine, and some of them you'll anticipate and you'll talk them through before, but actually there are just things that will crop up all the time, and if you're not there and you're not present, decisions will get made, and sometimes you'll be happy about them and sometimes you won't be. So you just have to be there all the time, and also just to keep on top of things, and to kind of manage the trades and all of that sort of thing. You've just got to be present, basically.
Yeah, definitely. So my next tip is to have the schedule of finishes done really early on. So these are things like the flooring, the feature walls, like any kind of like design thing, and you might think like, oh no, it's just a little thing, like I'll leave it to the end, but it does actually have an impact on the build as well. So in the renovation we're doing at the minute, we're having brick slips as a feature wall on some of the floors, but not on the top floor. So on the top floor what we're going to do is get like concrete effect paint basically, and our builder hadn't realized that, so he didn't put plasterboard on the top floor like walls where the feature wall needs to go for the concrete walls, because he was thinking, oh no, they're having brick slips. So you need to have that schedule of finishes kind of all done and all in place, and everyone needs to know what it is, just to make sure that nothing gets missed. And as well, it just saves you rushing. Like if you want a certain type of flooring, it's good to always have that decision like done before, just so you know what you want to do. Yeah,
it really helps to set the budget as well, actually, because it's then when you're sort of deciding almost like the spec.
Yeah,
like the spec of finish. So yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, cool. Next tip.
Okay, so the next tip is so obviously you'll have set the budget at the start of the project, and you'll have worked it out. My tip here, and this is something I didn't do as well on the first one, just because, well, I don't know, I think just because we were rookies and we were rushing, and so you have to check out the video of the mistakes, but I think because we kind of assumed what the budget would be, and we'd sort of had half a conversation with the builder and whatever, kind of just things ran away from us, but I would say you've got to keep on top of the numbers in terms of when those costs come in. So obviously you've set the budget, and I would recommend if you put them in a spreadsheet like Google Sheets or something, but you've got to update it regularly with the costs that are coming in, so that you're actually keeping on top of the cost, because otherwise things will just run away from you. And what obviously you want to be able to do is, if you happen to go over on something, you want to then see where you can claw it back to make sure that you stay in budget. So I would say update those costs minimum weekly. To be honest, if it's a really big busy build and you're constantly buying materials, it might be something you're doing every couple of days.
Yeah. So my next tip is to decide early on where you want to save and where you want to splurge. So I know for us in our current renovation, we're seeing the brick slips as a splurge, because it's something that, they're quite expensive. So that's like something that we wanted to spend more money on. So yeah, you've kind of got to decide things like that early on, like getting something like, say, brick slips, for example. That's not something you want to be deciding like weeks down the line kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can't splurge everywhere, because otherwise it would be really expensive and your return would be rubbish. So you've got to figure out where you're going to pull that back in the budget. So with us, we know that in terms of, say, for example, our flooring choices, we know that we can kind of pull it back a bit with the flooring, because we've done that schedule of finishes.
Yeah,
we know that our flooring is not going to be too expensive an option.
Yeah. Next tip.
So the next tip is don't be scared to get tenants into view before you've finished. Now in the video about the mistakes and stuff, we talked about being a bit aggressive with the schedule, but the other thing I'd say is start advertising really early for tenants. So we've started doing that for the one that's not even finished yet, because obviously people often have to give quite a bit of notice, and so we started viewings really early. The first tenant that moved into the first renovation, she was actually going to be out of the country for a month, so she came a month before it was finished, and it was like a building site. I mean, it literally was. So I mean, everything was down, obviously the second fix and everything was done, but there was like card and dust sheets covering all the flooring, so she couldn't even see what the flooring looked like, even though the flooring was down. But it literally looked like a building site. And I remember her looking at me saying, this is going to be finished in like a month. I was like, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. But, you know, genuinely, I think because, you know, obviously we met her, she met us, she had confidence in us. Bearing in mind, we had no pictures of any renovations at that point. At least with this one, we now have pictures from the first renovation. Yeah. So people can see the standard. But, yeah, I'd say don't be scared to get people in, you know, as long as you can, as long as they can get a sense of what you're trying to do and you can build up some rapport. You know, it is possible to kind of sell them on what it is that you're doing, as long as you're honest, obviously, with the spec. You know, don't overpromise stuff that's not actually going to be there when they move in. Yeah,
I guess because they can see the space, so like she could obviously see that it was a decent sized room. Yeah. So yeah, nothing to be worried about.
Definitely.
So I would say as well, if you want to save some money, do what you can yourself. So for our current renovation, we stripped out the property, which was something that we were like, oh, like we don't even know if we can do it, but we stripped out that property. Like, I am telling you, you can strip out a property. Like, I stripped out that property with my acrylic nails on and they were all fine. So I'm telling you, you can strip out a property. Like, you don't need to be work shy. Anybody can do it. So I'd say where you can, get involved and do little bits and bobs here, and it will actually save you a lot of money. Like, how much did you spend on the first renovation getting people to strip out?
I think in the first renovation we spent about 3,000
exactly. So
on the strip out, and part of the reason that we then did it in the second one is I didn't really trust anyone to do it and not rip us off. I think that was part of the issue, and obviously, and we had the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing as well that was really nice, that with the strip out in particular, was that we knew exactly then how bad or how good the refurb was going to be. So it meant that we had a much better sense of how realistic the budget was. I know that some people don't necessarily want to get their hands dirty in terms of sort of property, but if you enjoy that sort of thing, and I actually found it quite therapeutic, to be honest. Yeah. Then, you know, just go for it. One of the other reasons that we did it as well was because our builder was busy on another job at the time. So obviously what it meant was we would have just been waiting. So it just made sense for us to go in and get cracking.
Yeah, and we saved grands. So
we saved grands. And I think the other way that people can get involved is like upcycling.
Yeah.
Which I know some people just like to do that as like a hobby, like a bit of a craft. So, you know, and that's really cool at the moment if you can do things like that, and obviously it's really sustainable. So I think why not, you know. I think too many people see property as just something that generates money that they don't want to get their hands dirty in.
Yeah.
I know when we were doing the SA business, we certainly didn't want to get very hands-on running that on an ongoing basis, but having a property like this where we could literally go and just do a bit, you know, and then kind of be quite hands-off, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was cool. I've actually got a vlog of when we like stripped everything out, so I'll leave that in the description bar below. Okay, next tip.
Okay, so the next tip, and I think we learnt this a little bit from doing the SAs actually when we used to style those, but it's not to put too much furniture in before the tenants have moved in, and almost like, you know, don't over style it so that the rooms are literally, particularly if you're doing HMO or a single let actually, but don't put so many things in before anybody's moved in, because actually, you know, when people get in, they've got their own preferences. But what you just find is that the rooms can end up actually looking as though they're not very spacious. And actually when people come to view, when the tenants come to view, particularly in HMO, they want a feeling of space. So I think for me, you know, that tip when you're styling, when you're doing the finish, as much as you want it to look finished and you don't want it to look sparse, you know, but you don't want to put too many things in there, because you can always add things in afterwards. So that would be one of my tips with HMOs in particular.
Yeah, and I guess because everyone, like all the tenants like different things. Yeah. So some might want like drawers like this, some might want this, you know. Yeah,
and I think also for us, because it was our first HMO as well, and we've done a lot of research online, but you're never quite sure, you know, what it is that people want and what the best combination is of storage. So as much as you don't want it to be sort of like too bespoke for everybody, but neither do you want to like fill it with stuff that you think is going to work and then tenants get in and it doesn't work.
Yeah. So one thing that's really helped us out is actually asking like our current tenants for feedback on the furniture. So we wanted to know if they were happy with the amount of storage that they had, and if they were happy with having things like ottoman beds, and if that helped them out like storage wise. And a lot of them said that they did like having ottoman beds, so then we know for our next project to like keep the ottoman beds, keep drawers and things like that, because our current tenants have said that they like that. So that's been really helpful, because I don't know, it's kind of like feedback, isn't it? It's almost like doing a survey of like what people want. Yeah,
that was really, really useful. And I think also just sort of touching on that other point as well, I remember when the tenants were moving in, and because we hadn't put everything in, we could mix the storage solutions around. So, you know, some of the rooms have got like a bookcase because they're still studying. Some of them are still studying, and so, you know, they had lots of books with them. So kind of just mixing it around is really handy. But getting the feedback on the overall in terms of have you got enough storage, that was critical, because that helped us then with, you know, kind of like planning the furniture solutions for the next property.
Yeah.
And then the next tip that we've got, this is another really practical thing actually, and really important for HMOs in particular, is blackout curtains or blackout blinds. Now we've got blackout blinds, and I don't think the blackout blinds are as good as the blackout curtains. We've got these blackout curtains that are really, really cool. They actually fit to like a pole that bends at the ends, so it really helps for the curtains to kind of go flush to the ends. The blackout blinds just don't seem to get as blackout. But basically, if you've got tenants that work shifts, so particularly if you've got tenants that say work in hospitals or factories or you know, wherever they work, if they're going to be sleeping during the day, they need to have blackout blinds or curtains. And actually that was something that we picked up by having the tenant coming for the viewing early. It was something that she then mentioned, and so we made a point of making sure that all of the rooms have blackout curtains or blinds.
And my final tip is to just stay positive during a house renovation. I know that like it does look quite stressful, like when you just walk in and it's just a big building site and you're just thinking, is this ever going to be finished? Like what the hell is this? Like when is this house going to start looking put together? But just make sure you stay positive, stay calm, just stay chilled, and yeah. And
things will go wrong, you know, think absolutely 100%, as much as you plan, things will go wrong, and you just have to stay positive. I know that there's one person actually in property that always said to me that almost like there's no point getting all like angry and, you know, kicking off and all that stuff, because and we'll do another video about like managing trades, and that's a different thing, but there's no point kind of behaving like a toddler when things go wrong in property or on refurbs, because they will go wrong. You have to stay, you've got to stay positive, and you've just got to hold it together and keep going.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on my channel again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And make sure you subscribe, because we're doing quite a few house renovation videos now over the next few months, so you gotta make sure you check them out. But thank you so much for watching, really appreciate it as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye. We're seeing the brick slips as like a spurge.
And a splurge. Splurge and a spurge.